This is Express Leads. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Express Leads. I'm your host, Paul Brady. And today we are talking to Ashley Dotchin of Dotchin Law. Ashley, now let's see, she's an estate planning attorney that is focused on helping families make informed, empowered decisions about how to care for their family and assets when they're no longer able to do it themselves. And she guides families to leave behind more than just money to build a true legacy. Well, that just sounds awesome. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Would you, since we're kind of going down this road, would you mind giving us a little background and tell us a little bit more about your business?
Sure. So when I went to law school, I knew that I wanted to help people, and I took a little bit of time to figure out exactly how. I had watched my family go through the probate process and the estate planning process. My grandfather had a stroke when I was about 10, so he never really recovered. I watched my
No, I'm
grandmother.
sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. I watched my grandmother care for him until he passed away when I was in college and go through the probate process. And then I watched her update her own estate plan because she saw the pitfalls and things that she had to deal with because of the way his was set up. And then again, I watched my dad go through the probate process for my grandmother and seeing all of the ins and outs and the what works well and what didn't work well and what probably could have been avoided really seemed like something that I wanted to help families with. And I felt like there was a better way to do it than, how my grandmother had set up her own estate. And so I opened Dodge and Law a couple years ago, and that's been my focus on helping families to make sure that they don't have the negative experiences that my family had. I mean, we still have assets that are stuck in the Department of Unclaimed Property that my dad's
Wow.
never going to be able to get to, I don't think.
That's yeah, that is crazy. And without, without digging too deep here, I mean, obviously these situations with your grandparents and then your father dealing with yeah, your grandparent and just the experience with probate must have left such a big, you know, mark on you to be able to pursue a law career.
Yeah, it did. And, it was something that I struggled with. I had a lot of anxiety around, death and dying and, what happens after that. So, for me, it was a lot to overcome, but I just felt like it's so important for people to, to do and to be able to plan ahead and to feel like their families aren't going to be left with this huge mess. I mean, when you've passed away, your family, they're grieving. They don't necessarily know what to do because it's not something that comes up every day. So if we can
Right.
help you make that as easy as possible on them, then that's our ultimate goal is just to help make you, more at peace and more comfortable if and when something does happen.
Sure. So, listening to what you're saying, Ashley, too, I mean, it must be, cathartic to be able to, do this now. I mean, do you find that it helps you deal more with that initial anxiety you used to have? I mean, now you deal with it every day and you're helping people with this process.
Yeah, it's definitely helped a lot. And, I think that because of the anxiety that I used to have around death and dying, that I'm able to relate a little bit better to my clients and I'm able to help us come at it from a different angle where maybe it's not quite as scary and we focus obviously definitely on what happens after you've passed away, but then also, making sure that we're helping you plan for life as well. So it's not, I don't think it's as scary as the typical, estate planning approach.
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit in the green room, but uh, I was going to ask. I mean, so the pandemic, and it's funny. I haven't talked to a single business where the pandemic didn't have some sort of significant impact on them, one way or another. Interestingly enough, sometimes a positive impact. But so this must have seen, I would guess, a pretty big impact because of the pandemic in what you do.
Absolutely. We had a huge increase in phone calls or emails from people who had, either recently done estate planning and they just wanted to have it reviewed and make sure that everything was up to date, that there weren't going to be any surprises, nothing was missing.
Right.
And we had actually a really large number of clients who they put it on the back burner, which is so common. I mean, people are busy with their lives. The last thing they really want to do is sit down and talk to somebody about dying for, a couple of weeks. So
Right. Well,
I
it's
think
anxiety too for probably some of them too, right?
exactly. So, until the pandemic really presented people with this fear of, we don't know who COVID's affecting. We don't really know how likely you are to get it or to not get it, especially in the beginning. It brought up a lot of feelings of anxiety for people. So we were getting all kinds of phone calls, and we were happy to do free reviews for clients. We're still doing free reviews just to make sure if we can have somebody feel better about the plan that they've already created and know that it's up to date, it's taken care of, then we're happy to do it and happy to help.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's been a very I don't know. I guess we live in, to use an overused phrase, interesting times, right? I mean, when the pandemic came up, it was just like so many. I mean, like I said, I've heard different people say and talk about this, and and actually, it's funny. I've even had people talk about missed opportunities, how their business was optimized for something or not, was slightly not optimized in one respect, and it made a huge difference when the pandemic hit. And it's just, I mean, who thinks that that's going to happen, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Nobody, I don't think anybody saw this coming. Um, there was no way to have seen it coming. And I think for a lot of people, that was the scariest part of all of this was there was nothing that anybody could do to fix it or to make it go away. And there were
right.
so many variables and unknowns at the time.
So where's your law firm located?
So my main office is in Concord, Massachusetts, and we have a secondary location that we use in Wellesley. Thanks to the pandemic, we've learned to do a lot of things remotely. So we've been able to help more clients. We've been able to use Zoom interviews, and I've helped people as far away as the Cape. I've actually driven down there a couple times for signing. So really, we're open to helping just about anybody in Massachusetts.
So that's funny. You read my mind, Ashley, because my next question was right around how has the pandemic changed the way you do business? Now I know it increased business, but so it sounds like it made changes in the same ways that obviously it made it for a lot of people. Zoom, like you just said, Zoom, probably DocuSign, that kind of stuff, where you're not necessarily meeting people, you're just doing everything online. I mean, is that a change that you think is that going to become a more permanent part of your business, or do you feel like you may go back to doing things the way you did before?
I think it's going to be dependent on our clients and how they feel. Now that restrictions are starting to loosen up and the numbers are starting to come back down from what they originally were, I've had more clients that are requesting in person meetings, but I definitely still have a large number that prefer Zoom. I think until things really go back to normal or we have more answers, I don't think that Zoom's something that we're going to be able to get rid of or really need to get rid of. The signings, we were able to do a little bit of them on Zoom with recordings and licenses and some other logistical things that we had to do on our end, but
Right.
that's only until the state of emergency expires. So at this point, we're not doing too many remote signings, but what we've still been doing is if we have a client who's really uncomfortable coming to the office for one reason or another, we've been going and doing driveway signings on nice days where they'll grab two neighbors to witness their estate plan and we'll sign it outside. We'll review everything ahead of time so they're not out there for the next hour, and they can do it relatively quickly. But I think for a lot of people, they've really enjoyed that because they don't have to get in the car and come to the office.
It's funny. I'm picturing a commercial on late night television says Dotchin drive-by signings instead of quickly waving out the window with a couple of documents. And no,
That's
but
exactly what it feels like sometimes.
but you know what? I mean, that is really cool though. I love the driveway signings, and it's funny. I mean, I even before the pandemic, my financial advisor would call my wife and I and say, "Hey, I need you to sign a few documents." She's like, "Yeah, where do you want to do it?" He's like, "Well, I'm gonna be. If you're gonna be around, I'm gonna be this part of Worcester." I said, "Yeah." So we literally would just do not a driveway signing. We did a parking lot signing. We would just meet somewhere and sign. I'd jump in his car. We'd sign some stuff, and then he'd say, "Have a good night," and I'd take off, and he'd take off and do his thing. And yeah, I mean, technology's was a godsend. I mean, who knows what it was like in 1918, right? But
I know, I can't even imagine. It,
oh my goodness, no Zoom, no internet, no nothing. Yeah, that would have been insane. But yeah, you had Zooms, and now you're doing some driveway signings for people that are um, maybe not 100% comfortable still meeting in person. So you do it outside.
yeah, so we do it
Um,
outside. We set up a little table, bring some paperweights in case it's windy. I've had a couple times initially where I didn't anticipate wind and it made it a little bit complicated. So now I come fully prepared and we get everything signed as quickly as possible and, um, take everything back to the office with us and prepare it, put binders together. And
awesome.
yeah, it's been a really great experience, I think, for our clients to not feel like they have to run all over the place. I think the convenience has been a really big thing for them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. If you have you ever seen the Back to the Future movie?
I actually I haven't.
Well, there's a scene in Back to the Future where, because he went back in time, he's seeing a car pulls into a gas station and five guys come running out. One guy's checking the tires and putting air in, one guy's checking the oil, one guy's cleaning the windshield, another guy's like, I mean, they're all doing this stuff and they just don't do that anymore. And it's almost like we're doing this full circle thing, right? Where because of the pandemic and the way things have changed for some businesses, we're almost going back to doing things that are a little more convenient for consumers, like your driveway signings, for instance, right? Someone would have to drive into your office normally, but now that the pandemic has come, you've started to do business a little differently. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
and honestly, I've loved it. I've loved the convenience because I feel like customer satisfaction, customer, um, really anything you can do to make the process easier for them is so it makes a big difference because I feel like, with technology and all the good things that we've had, there's also the downsides where, you go to chat with Amazon and it's all online. You don't necessarily have a phone number. I've been dealing with that recently. And so, anytime you can add that extra level of communication with them and human interaction, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% because, and the funny thing is, businesses as a whole, right? I think have forgotten that people really appreciate that level of flexibility, and people are in no way used to that. So it's in some respects, I almost feel like it's going to be hard to go back to a pre-pandemic model for certain business models, right?
I agree. And, I think there's definitely a lot of this that I'm planning on keeping if possible. And I'm hoping a lot of other businesses will kind of do the same.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, tell me about your law firm a little bit. Are you the only attorney, or is it a staff?
No, it's just me right now. I do have some independent contractors that I have to help with administrative things that may pop up, but so I have two people that if somebody emails, they may hear back from. But I'm the
Okay.
only lawyer. I'm the only attorney doing any of the drafting or the meetings, which has been really helpful. I think when somebody calls, they know exactly who they're going to be talking to,
Sure.
which I think people have appreciated. Assuming things continue to go really well in the next couple of years, maybe we'll bring on somebody else. But for right now, happy with the way it's been working out.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So let me switch gears here for 1 second and ask you a little bit more about your prospecting and all that kind of stuff, finding clients, right? I mean, I know that because of the pandemic, you haven't had a lot of trouble because people are, your phone's ringing off the hook. But but that's not going to last, right? I mean,
No.
from a pandemic perspective, I don't mean that you won't get calls and you don't do great. You're not an awesome law firm. I just mean that heightened level of concern and anxiety and awareness is going to taper off. So let me ask you in kind of a pre or post pandemic. So in other words, let's eliminate the pandemic for a moment. What do you do when you look, and how do you find clients online? What is an ideal client for you?
Yeah, so marketing online has been interesting. Pre-pandemic, you would go to networking events, you'd meet people, and you'd meet people just out and about in everyday life. I have kids, so there was, always somebody to talk to. And now trying to find clients online, I found it's been a lot of word of mouth from past clients or other referral partners um, on different groups. Boston Business Women in particular, it seems like there have been a lot of families posting looking for estate planning documents that they need done. And then trying to, make sure that the website's up to date, that we're posting consistently on Facebook and
You have a
Instagram.
Facebook page,
We do.
and when you talk about online groups, are you talking about Facebook groups like other people's groups that you participate in?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So, it's definitely been a struggle there to try and figure out exactly how to use Facebook effectively to find new clients.
Right.
And I think, I've seen in other Facebook groups that I'm part of, like the Mass Business Connections one and a couple others, where um, people are posting because they're not really sure how to use Facebook effectively.
Yeah, Facebook can be a bit of a canard, right? I mean, it's not really very intuitive sometimes when you do
No.
some things for Facebook. And Facebook has a lot of weird rules because of the pandemic. I had a client that did, to give you an example, that was economic nonprofit, and we were doing a live stream and we were talking about the economic impact of COVID-19, and the live stream was stopped in the middle, like it was discontinued, which has never ever in all the time I've done anything on Facebook ever happened. I found out later that they stopped it because they've kind of, the thing about Facebook and Google is they kind of have AI out of control right now. So
Yeah.
some sort of keyword mapping tool that they run that's through AI heard me say COVID-19 and pandemic and money or something, and they decided to stop it. And
Oh,
so it was like odd. I've had things shut down and then reopened, because what happens is it does it by accident because you just mentioned a keyword they don't like. And
exactly.
yeah, and it's a little out of control. So I don't know if they've ratcheted that back a little bit. But I know for a while there, you couldn't say anything about, you couldn't do any ads that had COVID-19 or even the word pandemic in them, because they would probably be immediately, um, you know, uh, kicked out. Like they'd say no, or it would be rejected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's weird. And so Facebook and Google can be like that. Um, for businesses like yourself, a lot of times I often recommend a good, optimized Google My Business presence. So if you're on Google My Business, it's something I refer to as local SEO, not like national SEO, but just SEO based on your Google My Business page, so that people, when you do a search and you're saying, hey, I want to find a state, let's say someone lives in Concord. They say, I want to find an estate lawyer, right? An estate
Right.
attorney. Google My Business will show this, it'll probably list a bunch of websites, but on the top of that page, near the top, is a little square area with three businesses in it. That's
Yeah.
for our listeners that don't know. That's the Google Snack Pack, or the 3-pack they call it. Those are businesses that are local to wherever you're searching from. So if you're searching in Concord and you say estate attorney, you're going to find the estate attorneys that have the most optimized Google My Business profiles.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I've done that with clients before where I did it for full disclosure. My wife was one of my clients as well, which she got a great deal because she didn't pay anything. Um, but so for her, she's like dog walker. So when people that are in Worcester search for dog walker, she's in the top three.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, and it comes up because you have to optimize your profile, which means you have to your there's fancy Google has fancy terms for everything, right? But you have to go into your Google My Business profile, and when they say optimize, it means you have to make sure that you have pictures, that you're adding regular posts to the Google My Business post section, that you have everything filled out on your profile, your office hours, your holidays, if you got holidays. I mean, all that stuff filled out, all the information about you. Um, and then, in addition to that, you do stuff like local citations, which for folks listening, local citations are just directory listings. So people might say, well, what does that mean? Well, Yelp, Foursquare, Facebook, Twitter, those are all considered kind of like directory listings, even though they're not necessarily that. But the more of those things you have, and each of those has a link back to you, your website, and your business, and your phone number, and so that works to help you with your Google My Business as well. So it'd be local citations, also intent, right? So there's intent. There's um, you know of course, ranking for the right keywords. So you might say estate attorney, estate lawyer, estate lawyer Concord, estate attorney Concord. You might try ranking for a longer tail keyword, which is what they call a phrase that's two or more words. Usually it's
Okay.
yeah, usually it's longer, so it might be for a search for local. It's probably like dog walker Worcester, a state attorney Concord, right? And but what happens is over time you start ranking naturally for the subset of that long tail keyword. So instead of dog walker Worcester, eventually you're going to start ranking for dog walker.
I
And
love
once
that.
so that's something that because I do a lot of phone intake for my wife. Again, I wish she were here, she'd be rolling her eyes, um but I always tell her, geez, I got my own business, I can't be doing your phone calls all the time, sweetie. And she's like, oh, I know, but she's really busy. So I answer a lot of calls that come in, and I talk to people, and I always say, so how'd you hear about us? Google. Where'd you find us? Google. Did you find us on the internet? Yeah. Thumbtack? No, Google. So it helps a lot. And she has a lot of pictures because, as you can imagine, people love dogs, and she's a dog walker. So and also a pet sitter. So we have cats, we have dogs, we have chickens, we have all sorts of stuff on there, right? But that helps. So that's an optimized Google My Business setup, and that's something that I recommend for some people, that because some people don't necessarily want to dive into a marketing campaign per se, even though that's also effective because it helps you build your email list and all that. Which actually reminds me, I don't know, if you have a presence on Google, or if you have a like a mechanism to capture emails. But do you have a large email list, or do you have an email list that you're curating?
I do have an email list that I just recently started putting together. So I have a new website that's being built that hopefully will help as people are coming in. They can leave their email and join our mailing list. And other than that, it's emails that I'm compiling from webinars that I'm doing or in-person events, things like that. So it is growing. I probably should have started it a long time ago, but I'm telling myself better late than never.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's never too late to start an email list. And I always tell people, the money's in the list, right?
Yeah,
Because if you think about it, right, Ashley, everything you do with your Facebook, the whole reason you do Facebook advertising or Google advertising, or you have webinars where people register, or even an event where people have a sign in sheet and you ask for their email. The whole purpose of doing all that stuff is to get their email address. And so it amazes me when people do all these ads to drive people to their websites, but they're not collecting emails. It's like, well, you're just throwing money. in the fireplace.
Yeah, it's true. And, it was something that I think when I started my business, I had a large number of people ask if I had an email list. And I thought, what would I send out emails about? And slowly over the last couple of years, it's dawned on me why I would send out an email or who I would send emails to. And, I just try and send out helpful information of questions that I've got throughout the week, or, here's a blog post that we did that maybe you're interested in. And, looking to see how many people actually read the emails, I was surprised because I assumed, people would see it and just kind of click delete. I didn't realize how many people would actually be interested in reading blog posts or, checking out whatever else we have to say in there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and that's something I always recommend to people too. Is because and I had that question this week. Someone I was interviewing asked me, "Well, I don't know what I would do. What would I put out on an email list every day or every week?" Or it's like, well, you have a business. Your business, you have a domain expertise for your business, and people that work with you want to know. Want you to share some of that expertise and share that information and basically just provide value. That's
Yeah.
really all you're doing is providing value to someone. So, like you said, you can share a podcast link, you can share a YouTube video, or you can just share a blog post where you talk about something, or you can just write an email that doesn't really share anything but gives them value right in the email right there.
Yeah, it's honestly, I was surprised, like you said, once I started doing it, how much I actually have to share and put out there, and how excited I am to get that mailing list out each week to people so that they can, take a peek at it and hopefully they like it as much as I do.
Right. And then, once you have, yeah, and by the way, if you're providing, like you said, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. So if you're providing value, which, education and engagement, right, it equals value in my book. So if you're providing those things, then they're going to like your email and they're going to stay subscribed and they're going to read it. And maybe they won't read every message because people get busy, but yeah, if they stay subscribed, then you're okay. As long as you send out emails in a consistent fashion. So, in other words, you don't want to have build a list. Let's say you do a campaign, an email campaign, or through Facebook to drive people to a landing page where they get their email. You don't want to do that. Get 5,000 emails and then never send them something for 3 months because
They've forgotten who I am at that point.
right. They don't know who you are. And by the time they send you something, they could report it as spam. They could unsubscribe. They don't know. And people make that mistake. I've made that mistake in the past, not because I knew I shouldn't, but because I just got so busy I didn't do it. But yeah, it's really vital to be consistent and regular about that stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's definitely one way to do that. I've talk to folks about that. But let me ask you a little bit about your. Now you mentioned your website a few times. Let's and a little bit about social media, but let's talk more about some of your social media channels. Do you have like a YouTube channel
I
or
don't have a YouTube channel. It's something that I've thought about recently, probably over the last month or so, just
right?
because I've been doing more podcasts, and a couple estate planning attorneys I know have started YouTube channels where they'll just get on and they'll talk about a topic for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they'll post it.
Right.
um, I had been doing that initially at the start of the pandemic on Facebook Live, like you mentioned before, and it didn't really dawn on me to have a YouTube channel. So that's something that I'm definitely considering doing in the next couple weeks. Right now, I've been mostly focused on, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, and it seems like for whatever reason, I'm having better luck with Instagram than I am with Facebook. So I thought that's kind of interesting.
Huh. That is interesting. You mean you're getting more engagement on Instagram?
I am, yeah. I have a lot more followers. People are engaging more frequently. They're liking it. They're leaving comments. And I can post the same thing on Facebook and not have anybody, like it or comment. So it's been interesting to see. I've been tracking it more consistently since February, and I think we're up to almost 1,000 followers on Instagram now.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
really
so
good.
it's been interesting.
Well, and the thing is, you don't. It's probably a good thing not to like. Some people try and do everything. Also, you know what I mean. And that's not until you get good at one thing. You probably don't want to try and do too many things because what ends up happening is, the old adage, right? You end up, you know, you're the jack of all trades, but
Yeah,
not really effective at any one thing in particular, right?
exactly.
So, but one thing I will say, and I do say this a lot to people too, is if you're doing one thing like um, Instagram Lives, or if you're doing, um, actually, I was going to give you a tip because there's a tool called B.Live. So it's be.live. It's a tool I used to do interviews for different clients sometimes, right? But the reason I like it is because you can create videos that you can live stream to YouTube and Facebook. As a matter of fact,
Oh,
with the exception of Facebook, you can live stream to a bunch of stuff at the same time, just not Facebook because they're so um, Facebook is so high and mighty that they don't their API or whatever however they set up doesn't allow you to stream something to them and someone else at the same time. So you have to do them separately. But you can live stream something to a bunch of other things, right? And at the same time. And then what happens is that like Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, right? So when you do that, B.Live saves the video. So normally when you live stream off your iPhone, the video just goes up on Facebook. And it's not like you have a copy of the video anywhere that you can grab, right? Well, B.Live
exactly.
saves the video in your dashboard. So you can actually stream it later. And there's other tools, and I can't remember. I think one of them is called restream.io, if I remember correctly. But you can actually do a quote unquote live stream on Facebook through Restream, even though it's not live.
I love that.
Yeah, no, it's a little trick I've used in the past to try and because live always gets a little more engagement. But you can do some of the others live, or you can restream them as well if you want. But B.Live is great because it allows you to do a lot of stuff like that. And I'm all about the tools. I like the
Yeah, no,
tools.
I love it because I tell people all the time, I went to law school. I did not go to business school. Running a business is this whole other entity in itself. And, trying to figure out marketing and everything else is probably the hardest part of my day.
Yeah, no doubt. That's my wife always tells clients. It's like, well, I do the dog walking. My husband does all the marketing.
Exactly.
Um, and she's funny. She started out 3 years ago with zero clients. Then she got her first client was $200 a month, and now she's getting, well, geez, you always have an uptick in the summer because of vacations, and she does overnight pet sitting too. So she's at around 7K recurring every
Oh,
month.
wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just getting the right people, and like you said, you got to know how to. I do all the business operations for her too, so it's kind of like knowing, when to hire people, how to hire them, how to pay them, how to handle the 1099s, how to handle the taxes, how to do I forget what it's called, the 1024, whatever the other form is from the IRS,
Yeah.
where at the end of the year you have to file that whole long thing that says all the people you've had a 1099 with, and then you have to send them 1099s, and you have to send 1099s to the IRS. And I learned how to do all that stuff electronically, which was a huge savings because I was just like I was doing it manually before that, and I'm like, well, this is for the birds, so I like tools, so I'm going to find a tool. So you just found a platform that does it, but but yeah, it can be crazy trying to do like people have an expertise, and then on top of that they have to run a business and do marketing, and each of those are actually separate things in of themselves, and they can be full-time.
Yeah,
So it's a lot.
it is. And it's nice when you come across people who, like yourself, all the ins and outs, and you can really help make a lot of us feel better about the steps that we're taking or the tools that we're using, and maybe suggest better ways to go about it, it does eat up a huge amount of time. So it's always appreciated.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I like doing these interviews. I hope that I can provide some value and help, businesses and maybe give a little exposure as well to you and your business as well as the podcast. So, but yeah, happy to help any way I can always. And yeah, so you don't. It's funny because you look back on it, you realize it's like, wow, when I started this, I didn't know how to do any of this stuff as far as the business piece of it, and you're just like, you don't realize how many pieces there are. It's almost like peeling the different layers of an onion.
It really is. When I started the law firm, I mistakenly had this belief that, if I open an office and I set up a website, people would magically just find me and they would come
Yeah,
in and I wouldn't have to do anything. And I realized really quickly that that was not the case. And I tell people all the time, in some ways, I'm so glad that I didn't know exactly what it meant to own a business because I might not have taken the steps to do it. It might have scared me a little bit too much, but now having done it and having a little bit more experience, I can't imagine going back to working for somebody else or not having, my own business and my own thing and the ability to help people in the ways that I think they really need to be helped instead of having, somebody tell me how to do it and what to do when.
right. No, that is
And
true. There's
amazing.
definitely a liberating factor there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There totally is, and it's nice too that you're able to do your own thing and help people in the way that you believe and are passionate about. So yeah, so speaking of people, um, let me ask you a more marketing related question here. You I know you talk to, especially during the pandemic, you talk to a lot of people all day long, right?
Yeah.
What do you think are the most common questions that people ask you when they come in and they're looking for help from, you know, an estate attorney like yourself? What do you think are like the top three, top five questions, whatever comes to mind?
Yeah. I've had a lot of people ask about the difference between a will and a trust. Because when they come in, they really don't know. They haven't dealt with it before. Sometimes they know a friend or a neighbor who's done it, but they really don't understand what the difference is or why they're doing any of it. And I've had a surprising number of clients not even know what probate is. So when we do start that initial conversation and I ask them if they know what probate is so that I can kind of go through the answer to what's the difference between a will and a trust. So many people don't even know what that process is like or that, it has a name. So that's been interesting and, realizing there's this lack of communication about the probate process as a whole. People talk more about their planning than they do about what happens as they're going through the court process. And it
Right.
seems like people are not as likely to share that.
Huh.
And I've also had a large number of clients for whatever reason who initially believed that they needed a certain dollar amount to create a trust. So I'm not,
Really?
yeah. So I've had several clients who have come in and said, oh, I don't need a trust. I don't have enough assets. I just need a will. And when we start digging into why exactly they feel that way, it's interesting. I find people don't really know how much they have or don't have because they're just looking at their bank account. They're forgetting about all the other important assets that they have, like their house or their retirement account, any investment accounts that they might have. If they don't see it every day, they tend to forget about it. So
Yeah.
it's been a education process to remind people that they have more than they think that they do, and what they do have, no matter what that dollar amount is worth protecting. And if a trust is going to help make things easier for them, based on their situation, it doesn't really matter what that dollar amount is. So there's definitely been, I think, more education in the last year and a half or so than than I've seen before because I think people genuinely want to learn why they're making decisions and feel confident in those decisions instead of feeling like they're kind of pushed into them or told that, this is what you need without any explanation of why.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's and plus like we said earlier, sometimes people, I'm sure you get a certain amount of people that ask you questions and you'll ask them questions and say, "Well, why do you need to know that?" People are so
Yes.
funny about their money and about their, you know, it's
Yeah.
like,
I
you
tell
know,
everybody from the beginning, I'm going to be nosy and I'm sorry, but I'm going to be and it's it's for your benefit.
oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, you kind of got to realize that when you go to see like an estate lawyer or a financial advisor, they're going to be nosing around and asking you questions, but guess what? That's why you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So let me do a recap on from a marketing perspective here for a second and say that I really like the direction you're going. I like some of the things you're doing. You definitely have yourself plugged into Facebook groups, and you're making a movement towards creating some more things that maybe you don't have right now in the social media channels that you're working on. So I think those are all good. I'll just stress that your email list is really important, and that um, anytime you're creating content like on YouTube, anything else like that, you always want to have a call to action somewhere in your description of the YouTube. Like when you post your video, you can put a description, have a link in there for people to sign up
Oh, that's a really
for
good idea.
yeah, email, or have a link for them to sign up for like even a free ebook. And if you don't have time to write an ebook like that, you can get an ebook done for you on Fiverr, Upwork, or even go find something called PLR, which is um, uh, uh, oh geez, now I'm going to forget what it is. Isn't that terrible? I'm getting decrepit. Accelerated decrepitude, Ashley. Uh, I think it's public label rights or private label rights. That's what it is. Jeez, I couldn't remember. It's private label rights, which means that you can take something that someone else has created that is um, gives you the right to change, rebrand it, do anything you want with it, and then give it away or sell it as under your brand, like as by you.
Oh,
So
wow.
say yeah, so PLR is like saves you a lot of money if you're. So I do that a lot with clients if they don't want me to write something for them myself. I'll go ahead and find a PLR for them. Like I'm doing something in a weight loss niche right now, and I found a PLR on walking your way to health,
Oh,
and it's free. But the whole idea is, you have a Facebook ad or a Google ad, and you're pushing someone to a little landing page. That landing page is just a simple HTML page. It's not on your website. It's separate. It's just a simple HTML page with some nice graphics and some copywriting on it that's very brief. Hey, because they've already clicked from the ad where they're interested, right? So they know they're going to get this free ebook on walking your way to health, right?
right.
um, or to weight loss or whatever it is, right? So they give you their email and they click submit. They get a thank you page, and on the thank you page it says, "Hey, go to our next step." And you click that, and you end up in a funnel saying, you know, "Hey, why don't you? Would you like to try out for our 23-day weight loss challenge?" That kind of thing. So the idea is that you're kind of ascending them through a ladder, right?
Yeah.
That Brunson calls it a value ladder, but it's a value ladder where you're going from something free to something paid to something maybe even high ticket, or maybe even leading them to a phone call or a Calendly link where they can schedule something to talk to you. So, but you're getting their email in the very first step for something free. So even if they say no to all your other offers, you can turn around and kind of, if they go off the path, the way I look at email lists or email campaigns is you're trying to redirect them onto the path by taking emails that have links that redirect them back to those offers. So you can get them to, if you're selling something, you may just want something simple where, and I've done this with financial advisors where they come in and they get a free ebook. They sign up, and then it sends them to, you know, and the ebook is about something specific to financial that a financial advisor does or provides for you. So then you're sent to somewhere where you can click on Calendly and register to set up an appointment.
Yeah.
So you get their email, their phone number, and you get an appointment scheduled for a phone call.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that.
yeah, that's a pretty common way to do things as well. So if you're someone like the weight loss person, they have products and that they sell, right? For someone that's a more high ticket item or something that's more complex than that, like for instance, a financial advisor or an estate attorney, you know, uh, anything like that, right? That probably would be more beneficial to have a phone call, a conversation. Then you can set up a phone call. So stuff like that, and even just Google My Business. Like I think you said you have a Google My Business going, right?
I do, but I'm definitely going to take a peek at it and see what I can change because I don't think I'm using it as effectively as I could be after talking to you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
No,
that.
no, that's good. I mean, I set it up when I set up G Suite, and I probably have only looked at it a handful of times, so I'm
I
sure
got
it's
you.
in desperate need of an update.
Yeah, and so that's something that you can update that, but then again, and again, you're on the right track with that because you want to be able to show up. Um, when someone searches for, just try it yourself. You can even say a state attorney and a state lawyer, separate searches, Concord, right? Now, most people who are in Concord might not type in Concord, but if you start with something like that, eventually you'll just rank for a state attorney in the end.
Yeah,
It's like a harder one to rank for, but eventually you will. But yeah, I mean that's a good way to do it. But it's more to it. I mean, when you're talking about Google My Business, you also have to do the citations, you have to do keywords, you have to do all that stuff to get people going there. So, but yeah, it's definitely a lot cheaper than doing, full blown coast to coast SEO for your website. That's a totally different thing. Um,
yeah,
just so people understand that are listening, because Google My Business, I just call it local SEO. Really, it's just Google My, optimizing your Google My Business. But some people, the terminology is very funny in this space. Some people will say on Fiverr, for instance, "Oh, I can help you optimize your Google My Business." Yeah. So, so what that means is they go in and just make sure everything's filled out, and they're like, "Okay, done. Give me $300."
oh my
That's
gosh,
not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting you in that snack pack or that 3 pack,
yeah.
doing that, which eventually over time you should be able to do. Now, attorneys are a little more, depending on the attorney, the type of law they practice can be a little more competitive. So I'm sure that estate attorneys are pretty competitive right now.
I'm sure I experienced that a little bit. It's not uncommon for somebody to call and schedule an appointment and tell you that they've scheduled an appointment with another one or two lawyers just so they can compare packages and personalities and whatever else they feel like they need to compare. So it's definitely been an interesting year and a half.
Yeah, I'll bet it has been. My goodness. So listen, so I think other than that, the two big things I'd say for you is if you want to build your email list. So if you want to get more people on your email list, you need to have, you know, I would recommend one way to do it is to have just like a simple lead magnet, get people going to it, and then have that thank you lead to some sort of an appointment set up. I do something a lot of times. I used to do this with gyms a lot too. People would come in, they'd sign up. Hey, sign up now, get 7 day free trial, and then and if you pay before the end of the 7 day free trial, you get the first 30 days for free. That sounds amazing, but every single gym in the universe does that, right?
They do.
So but people don't know that. So when you put it out there, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm going to take this offer." So, but what happens is they come in, they do that, and what I do is I send them to a thank you page where it says, someone will reach out to you, and they get an email response that says someone will reach out to you. But on the thank you page, it also has the owners, because it's a very owner operated thing. It's a small business, right? Gyms, most of them,
Right.
even the franchises are. So what you say is you put the cell phone number on there, the owner, and you say, "Look, someone from my office will call you, but if you want to jump to the front of the line, call me now." And they
Oh,
call the phone number. So just little tricks, little tips like that, things you can get people. Number one, get them on your mail list, because the other thing is people go through that whole thing and then they won't do something because they're in the middle of walking out the door or they got another meeting in 5 minutes. So the email list is really what keeps people coming back for more, right? And that's why the money's in the email list. So HubSpot, which is a big agency in Cambridge, talks a lot about inbound marketing and statistically speaking, how those things work. And one of the things they say a lot is that no one's going to act on your brand or your offer until they've seen it 3 to 7 times. So when you see an ad, you've seen it once. You go to a landing page, you see it, you're like, okay. Very few people pull the trigger except the most impulsive people, right away. They might see it, they might put the number aside, maybe they'll say, oh, I got to get back to them, but they don't get back to it right away. So then what happens? They have a once they sign in and they opt into that form, they go into an email campaign. They get an email every day for 5 to 7 days. And each email provides some sort of value, maybe things that you're repurposing from campaigns that you've done previously for existing clients that talk about the types of value that you add for them, and you're giving them free tidbits of information. But certainly part of it is trying to get them to call you if they haven't called you, and to set up that appointment. So that's kind of how that works. And before we wrap up, though, I'd like to just give you the opportunity for our listeners to what do people do if they want to reach out and contact you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me would be to call, and the number is 617-716-9715, or they can send an email to adotchin@dotchinlaw.com.
Okay. I'm just writing this down. So 617-716-9715, and it's Ashley Dotchin?
Yes.
Or it's adotchin@dotchinlaw.com?
Yes.
That's excellent. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been a distinct pleasure being able to have a conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to hopefully talking to you at some point in the future when the pandemic is not so crazy.
Me too.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This has been Express Leads, hosted by Paul Brady of Brady Consulting and Inbound Marketing. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave us a voice message by visiting anchor.fm/expressleads. Thank you.